The new Marvel season just dropped, and of course there's a crazy amount of new strats that you guys can be doing. So what I did is I hosted my own solo cash cup twice in the past few days. I gave away loads of money to figure out exactly what strats work best, what mobility items are best to carry, what mythics are best to go for, and of course what shotgun and what AR is best to use if you want to be doing well. I'm going to cover absolutely everything in this video, so please leave a like and subscribe, and let's get straight into it. Alright, here's how to use the new jetpacks correctly. Very simply, all you need to do is make sure your binds are set up something like this. So down here in this hover tab, you just want to make sure that they're not actually overlapping. So as you can see, hover, make sure they're not overlapping, and you also have this boost one, so I'd recommend putting that something that you can press easily. Then you need to just double tap space, press the movement key while boosting, and then you can go ahead and boost forward. And then what I recommend doing is crouching straight after. So once you combine it all together, you do something like this. And I'd also recommend crouching twice so you get the slide afterwards like that. You can also do it any direction you want. You can sprint forward and then go to the side, or go backwards as well, which is kind of OP like that. If you want to get away from somebody during a fight, let's say I'm boxed up and there's a guy pushing me, I can do something like this and get a shot on him while going backwards. Actually an insane amount of things you can do with them, as well as if you were just doing a regular rotate, doing a ramp up like this and then doing the jetpacks to get forward is actually really good. As you can see, like 30 meters, perfect for every single rotate. Also, one thing to mention is you can combine them with the fizz as well, so you get low gravity. It doesn't make it insanely better, but it does make it a little bit more impactful when you're actually doing rotates themselves. You can also use the jetpacks to get straight into somebody's box, even if they're holding a wall. Just use the boost as you're going ahead and breaking the wall with an SMG, and you'll get straight in and you'll end up boosting behind them to get a free kill.
Go get my shotgun. Bro, this guy's too shit.
That was so embarrassing. You can also combine these with launch pads, so just make sure you're like roughly level with the launch pad, then go ahead and activate it, and then boost onto it. And as you can see, now I've got basically a flying effect. I don't take full damage, and I can land straight on somebody's head while going in the same distance. It's basically impossible to get tagged while you're doing that. Alright, now let's get on to another big topic aside from the jetpacks in terms of what loadout you guys should be running. In my opinion, the shotgun is such an important choice this season because there's so many different options, and to be honest, every single option is viable. The Gatekeeper has of course been the most popular shotgun for the past chapter or so. Everybody's been using the Gatekeeper. It's unbelievably good. You can get away with just using Gatekeeper only, but how does it stack up compared to the new shotgun, the Sovereign? And in my opinion, I actually think the Sovereign shotgun is slightly clear of the Gatekeeper, especially when you factor in that you've got 6 bullets, you know, it's reloading the whole time. You can also reload 1 shell per time very effectively, as well as you get 9% more damage and then 15% more headshot damage. And this is just for the blue version. If I put this up to legendary, as you can see, let's see, you've got really good loadout. The Sovereign shotgun can 2-shot body shot somebody, which is insanely OP considering the fire rate, as well as how quick this gun pulls out whenever you do an edit or a build. It allows you to play a lot more like 50-50 and basically just jump in boxes and hit 2 shots for somebody compared to the Gatekeeper. As well as if you look, the headshot damage is massively increased, and you get double the amount of bullets, which is so good. Also, I do think the pump shotgun is still relatively viable this season. I would not take a pump over a Sovereign, and to be honest, this season I would say majority of the time just choose the shotgun that has the highest rarity, and I do think the Sovereign is clear. So let's say you've got all blue guns, you're not sure what to take, I would choose the Sovereign. I think it's way better, and honestly the Gatekeeper is still unbelievably strong. You can run a Gatekeeper, especially if you get one of drum mag. It is really good. Also, one thing to mention quickly is the Sovereign with an underbarrel is really good because it allows you to ADS faster, or a laser is extremely good because you get a tighter pellet spread, or what you can do is actually get one with a scope plus underbarrel like that, and you can basically play like a quick ADS style. It's really good for looking front side of zone, getting tags on people, and it makes the Sovereign really strong. Alright, next up, let's talk about what secondaries you guys should be using. And to be honest, this is a lot more clear cut in terms of what is viable. The combat assault rifle, in my opinion, is pretty terrible. I wouldn't really use that. The pistol can be viable, but I wouldn't take that over any of the other options this season. The Monarch pistol as well, the new pistol that does extra damage when you ADS, is pretty crazy, but I wouldn't say it's better than any of the other 2 options. And these dual micro SMGs are extremely good for just W keying and box fighting, but they're not very viable for like a whole game. If you're playing a solo cash cup final, I wouldn't really use these unless you have an extra slot and you can use them for pressuring and box fighting. They are very good for that purpose, but they're not very good as just an overall only swap weapon. Instead, it's going to come down to between the Striker and the Striker Burst, commonly known as the AUG. And this is where I think it's really just a preference. I have seen with these guns, it really matters what attachments you have on them, as well as the rarity. Like let's say you've got rare AR versus a legendary AUG. Obviously you're going to take the AUG every single day of the week. It comes down to the preference of what you want to use, as well as what quality you get. I would say overall, the Striker Burst is by far the best gun, mainly because you get an insane amount of damage at range, especially when you have a good scope on it, something like that. Even a thermal, if you go to a bunker, you can get 0 recoil, which is kind of crazy. You can get laser on it very well. You can go ahead and get some attachments to make it ADS faster. You can get a suppressor on it as well, which is one that I had, was absolutely crazy. Nobody could hear me shooting from. You get 3 kills very easily. Depending on what attachments you get can make or break these guns. So I would just go with whichever gun has the better quality as well as the better attachments, but favoring the striker burst. I think it's by far the strongest gun this season. Now, in terms of what heals you guys should be carrying, I think the Fizz is an absolute must carry this season. Of course, you get 100 shield that you can use anytime. It's very good for fighting as well, but you can combine it with the Jetpack to do some crazy rotates, especially when you're doing high layer boosts. What you can do, the Jetpack, is just doing a bunch of ramps up and then use your Fizz and get the entire way to zone. As you can see right there, the player I was coaching managed to rotate the entire way to 8th zone with just one Fizz charge and then a couple uses of the Jetpack, which is why the combination of it is so strong. Also, when you're carrying the Fizz, you're not forced to use the Jetpack for every single rotate. You can actually just use the Fizz for regular rotates, like if you want to do a quick rotate on foot, like right here. He was in a pretty scuff spot. It's quite challenging to get out of this layer down on low ground when you're using a Jetpack, so you can't go up too easily. So instead, what they did was just use the Fizz, sprint and jump up, get themselves to a high layer, and now they're in a perfect spot to use Jetpack charges. And this is where, again, using Fizz and Jetpack combined is so effective because you can basically just rotate this entire zone with just a couple Jetpack boosts. If you guys are serious about getting better at competitive this season, then go check out Solo Superstars. Last season, we had an absolute ridiculous amount of players make their first earnings with it, and being resubbed, as well as the other coaches like Zycoma, Sven, and Bloodaxe, are going to be hosting a load of sessions for the upcoming meta and getting you guys as ahead of the meta as possible. I really recommend you check out. This type of stuff is so powerful at the start of the season, especially if you're just getting an advantage over other players. Solo Superstars is definitely going to be a massive help for that. One of the biggest grief and probably the most annoying thing about this season is the War Machine arsenal. You can get infinite rockets when you're using this mythic item, and it's pretty common as well. Like, it's a 1 in 5 chance of getting one out of the Avengers chest, and it is insanely strong. Right here, I'm griefing much players holding edge of zone with it, and I was able to get a free kill from doing it, as well as you can just grief everybody around. If you guys are in a situation where there's somebody who's doing it to you, you can either counter it with your own, like this guy was doing to me, or you can just shoot back. You should be able to out DPS the player if they're shooting at you, just with the rockets. However, majority of the time, I would recommend just disengaging from the area and not just getting into a grief fight versus the War Machine's arsenal, because they have infinite rockets and most likely you don't. Again, this isn't too bad in solos, but in duos it's definitely going to be a problem, so you guys need to be aware of it. Also, with jetpacks, there are some crazy rotates you can do, especially if everybody around you, like let's say in the boxes surrounding you, has gone. You can actually do some insanely high up rotates and just stay boosting over and over rather than running them down on low ground. Just make sure you do this at a timing when everybody has to move and nobody's boxed up looking back, like 8th zone, and be able to do it completely for free. One very big skill this season is knowing how to go ahead and take high ground, especially when you're getting in an endgame zone like this with massive hills. The jetpack is so important. As you can see, literally goes off a giant cliff face, and they're able to use the jetpack to go straight up and then do a bunch of 90s and take high ground. Once you're up on height this season, guys, you need to make sure that you're doing good tarps so you don't get awareness checked by other people using the jetpack, especially because people can just jetpack underneath your tarp if you're in the center zone very easily. So you need to be super aware that that can't happen. Like right here, everything looks fine, especially if you've got visual audio on, it helps, and they're able to get a couple free kills. But in a second, when zone swaps, they put themselves in an awkward spot. They should be playing edge of zone, so it's harder for people to make sure they're going underneath him. And then once you reconnect over other people's builds like this is when high ground gets very scuffed. What I'd recommend doing if you're playing height is staying super high up and just pressuring non-stop, so you don't get forced into aim draws versus people on second height who need a refresh. Especially remember, people can ADS and do loads of damage while they're using the jetpack. It's unbelievably strong. And then right here, their tarp is way too central over zone, which means that another player in a second is able to use the jetpack, come up behind them, and whenever you see that jetpack on your screen and you've got a tarp like this, so you can see there's a jetpack behind them, all you need to do is just box up, especially if you're low HP, otherwise somebody's just going to fly up on you from behind. It's a very good high ground take play you can do, sneaking below height and then jetpacking up on them, especially when you've got a good amount of mats. It's a really solid play to do, and it's very hard to counter. One of the best plays you can do this season is flanking height while playing medkits early, especially if you're playing medkits like 30 seconds early, you've got no chance to win the game. This is a really solid play that you can do. Only issue is this player wasn't reloaded and it went a bit south.
That is fucking
sorry. One of the biggest changes this season is the reintroduction of the armored walls. Especially for solos, this is a massive game changer because it allows you to do a lot of plays that you couldn't do before. Like right here, this player ends up in a very scuffed, congested side of the zone, and this is the perfect time to use a preemptive armored wall, especially if you need to get heals off or you just want to have a chill out and reload your guns for a second. Using an armored wall, especially an armored ramp like this, you can see here, placing an armored ramp to protect yourself from below as well as basically 3 sides of zone is insanely strong. Also, it's very good to make sure you're not getting getting awareness checked. If you've got cap armored walls or just a bunch of armored walls later on, don't be afraid to use them before you need to. Don't just save them to your 1 HP and you're about to die before whacking down a load of armored walls. That is basically just a massive waste of them. Also with armored walls, especially during final moving, it's a really good play if you've got a bunch to do an armored tarp, especially if you've got a heal off and you don't want to get interrupted. Just whack down a load of armored walls, make sure you're protected. You can do this on height to make sure you don't get sprayed out, as well as down low ground. Just doing armored walls so you don't get jumped in on by a player who needs a refresh is really good. Alright, now that we've talked a little bit about the meta and strats that pretty much everybody can do, what other things can give you an advantage this season when it comes to winning games? And first things first, forecast is still in the game and it is still extremely strong. I would say it's stronger than last season because people can't just, insta crash pad to its own, and majority of players aren't able to find a jetpack. They're not actually that common. I'd say there's around 30 to 40 jetpacks per game, and there's not an insane amount of them just sitting around the map. So most players, especially later on, are going to have a jetpack, but there's going to be a significant amount who do not. So having forecast and using that ability to know where zones you're going to pull, especially the partial zones, is extremely strong, and it is a massive advantage. Next up, there's also 3 new medallions that have been added to the map, as well as 3 new mythic items that you can get from these bosses. The first of which being Emma Frost's medallion over at the Raft. This gives you the mythic AR, which is extremely good. It's not as good as, the combat AR from last season, but it is still extremely good. It's by far the best AR in the game at the moment, as well as it gives you the reveal medallion. This thing is absolutely crazy. You know exactly where somebody is whenever you're having a mid-game fight. It'll ping them every minute or so, gives them a full body outline, so you know if they're healing, you know exactly where they are. But later on in Endgame, you know exactly where people are if you need a refresh. It allows you to pre-aim perfectly, allows you to pre-edit perfectly, allows you to do so many plays, as well as it is extremely good for high ground. You know exactly where other players are, if there's somebody flanking you backside, if there's somebody even up on high ground above you, or if you can take high ground for free. The mythic reveal medallion is going to be by far the best, which is what pros like Peterbot and things are going to be going for. It is unbelievably crazy. I still cannot believe the player with the reveal medallion lost this right here. Look, it literally reveals exactly where the player is, what they're doing, what heals they're popping, and he still lost the 1v1, which is absolutely crazy. But that AR and the medallion is absolutely crazy, and I'd recommend you guys go for it if you're confident in doing so. Then there's also 2 other mythics that you can get from around the map. The first of which is, of course, the Mysterio's Invis. And to be honest, this is a little bit gimmicky. I can see a lot of people dropping this in ranked. It's not really useful in that sense for keying or things like that. But later on into the game, this is actually a fairly useful medallion in my opinion. Mainly because you can just sort of crouch and then just go super invis while you need to rotate, right? You can just rotate completely while invisible. People won't spot you, especially with Storm behind you. And later on, I was coaching this player and telling them to just go invis down on low ground. This is actually, I would say, a fairly viable strat because other players aren't going to box fight you. They have no awareness on where you are, and they end up getting a completely free kill while doing this later on. Also, with this Invis medallion, as you get the mythic shotgun, which unfortunately this player didn't get, is basically just a better sovereign shotgun, better stats, nothing too crazy with it. It's definitely not like the Grim shotgun where it was absolutely insane. However, it is still a really good shotgun, probably the best shotgun in the game at the moment, the Mythic Mysterio. Then of course we have Dr. Doom. He gives you the Monarch pistol, which is fairly crazy, as well as the Siphon Gauntlet. Again, Siphon isn't too crazy. I would say it's not as good as the Invis, especially because Invis has more plays you can do. You can sneak into tarps. This player was able to win the game just from sitting down on low ground while invisible. And of course, the Emma Frost Reveal Medallion is by far the best medallion in the game. I think it's going to be, the main factor that allows people to win games, just because it allows you to get refreshes so much easier. Again, Mysterio, not super crazy, but there definitely is some plays that you can do with it, like the sneaking into tarp clip right here.
Wait, let me do something.
Oh my god.
Should I go in their box and see if I can get behind them and get the viral clip?
No.
Oh my god!
Kill him, can you?
Come now. Oh my god!